good for both of them. In the meantime, waiting for me to have Lucy, have my baby, he went to work with
Miss Brooks.
Miss Brooks, and Dee went with
Burns
and Allen.
Lucille Ball, the queen of comedy, had a life far more secretive than her laughter-filled shows suggested. Behind the camera, whispers of scandal swirled, hinting at hidden romances that shocked Hollywood.
You got the best horoscopes in town.
Oh, thank you.
You know what he did?
What?
Mr. Merriweather gave me an even better job.
For years, rumors lingered about the men who captivated her heart. 6 actors whose names were once unthinkable to reveal. Now, the truth is coming to light, exposing a side of Lucille Ball no one dared imagine. The hidden life of America's favorite redhead. Lucille Ball was known to the world as the cheerful redhead who brought laughter into millions of homes. People adored her as Lucy Ricardo, the clumsy and lovable housewife from I Love Lucy. But behind the bright smile and the playful voice was a woman living a very different life. Lucille Ball carried secrets that never made it to the television screen. She lived through pain, betrayal, hard choices, and private decisions that were carefully hidden from the public. Hollywood worked hard to protect her image, because one rumor could destroy a star in a single night. The Hollywood of her time was strict and unforgiving. Stars were expected to look perfect. Their marriages had to look happy. Their relationships had to appear clean. If a scandal reached the newspapers, studios could cancel contracts or block future work. Because of this, entire teams inside the studios worked to hide mistakes. Publicists, lawyers, security teams, and even reporters were paid or pressured to protect the biggest stars. Lucille Ball was one of them. She was not just a famous actress, she was a brand. Every studio had a huge investment in her. They could not afford for the public to know anything that might damage her reputation. This is why her private life was guarded so tightly. Her friends, co-workers, assistants, and even strangers who witnessed something unusual often stayed silent. Some stayed silent because they cared about her. Some stayed silent because they feared the power of the studio system. And some stayed silent because they were paid or warned to keep quiet. These layers of protection created a wall around Lucille Ball. Behind that wall, she made choices that the public never imagined. Over the years, there were whispers of her private struggles. Her marriage to Desi Arnaz was full of passion, but also full of heartbreak. Desi was charming and talented, but also deeply flawed. His drinking, his anger, and his constant affairs caused Lucille years of emotional pain. She loved him deeply, and America loved their on-screen partnership. But her real marriage was a storm. To survive that storm, Lucille found comfort in people she trusted. For decades, the truth stayed hidden, but time has a way of uncovering secrets. As the older generation of Hollywood insiders began to grow older, some decided to speak openly. They believed that enough time had passed. They felt that telling these stories would not harm Lucille's legacy. Instead, they believed it would help people understand her as a complete human being. Private letters were discovered. Unpublished memoirs were found. Assistants and technicians finally decided to share memories they had kept to themselves for over half a century. Old friends who once promised silence finally revealed what they witnessed behind closed doors. But the first secret name connected to Lucille was not a dangerous rebel or a wild Hollywood heartbreaker. It was a quiet and gentle leading man who helped her see her true worth long before the world did. Henry Fonda. Before Lucille Ball became a household name, she was just another young actress trying to survive in the competitive world of Hollywood. During these early years, she met Henry Fonda, a man who was already respected for his strong presence on screen and for his calm and thoughtful nature off-screen. Their worlds were very different, yet something quiet and warm formed between them. Many insiders from the old days believed that Henry Fonda was the first man who made Lucy feel truly seen. Lucy and Henry were both working at RKO Studios in the 1930s. She was still fighting for attention and better roles. The studio did not yet understand her true talent. They gave her small roles and often told her she was only useful for her looks. Henry, on the other hand, was rising quickly. He was known for his honesty, his intelligence, and his respectful attitude toward colleagues. When the two began working around each other, people noticed a connection that felt natural and unforced. It was the kind of connection that does not need words to explain. Production assistants from that time later shared what they witnessed. They said Henry treated Lucy differently from other actors. He asked about her opinions. He listened to her ideas. He respected her mind. This shocked Lucy because most men in Hollywood did not treat actresses as equals. Many saw actresses as decorations on set. Henry did not. Henry saw her as a person with intelligence and potential. This meant a great deal to her, especially during a time when she felt invisible and undervalued. According to Jane Fonda's autobiography, Henry had a habit of falling for his co-stars. This pattern makes the possibility of a brief but meaningful romance quite believable. One wardrobe assistant told a historian that Lucy once said Henry made her feel respected in a way no one else ever had. She said that being with him made her feel like more than just a pretty face. She felt understood. People who knew Lucy claimed this early connection influenced her for the rest of her life. Even after the rumored romance faded, Lucy always spoke of Henry with softness in her voice. Decades later, when asked about him in an interview, she simply smiled and said, "Henry was a gentleman in every sense," and then changed the subject. That small moment hinted at a memory she kept close to her heart. Their alleged relationship ended quietly. Both were married at the time, and neither wanted to create scandal. Hollywood was unforgiving, and one rumor could bring down careers, yet their bond did not disappear. They remained lifelong friends. Even years later, when Lucy and Desi Arnaz struggled to build Desilu Studios, Henry offered advice. He encouraged Lucy to fight for what she believed in. He supported her dreams of not only acting but also leading and building something of her own. A makeup artist who worked with Lucy in the 1960s shared another interesting detail. She said that whenever Henry's name came up, Lucy's eyes softened, not with romantic longing, but with deep respect and gratitude. Lucy once explained that Henry was one of the few people who saw her real potential long before she became famous. He believed she had the talent and intelligence to become more than what the studios expected from her. This early validation mattered. It gave Lucy confidence that she carried into her future. It showed her that there were people in Hollywood who valued her mind, and not just her beauty or comedic timing. This pattern of seeking intellectual and emotional understanding would later appear again as Lucy connected with other creative and brilliant men. While Henry offered calm understanding, the next man in Lucy's life brought something far more intense. He brought genius, danger, and the kind of energy that could change the direction of her entire career. Orson Welles. When Lucille Ball entered the 1940s, her life and career were changing rapidly. She was no longer the struggling young actress from the early days at RKO, yet she had not reached the powerful position she would later hold. It was during this transitional period that she crossed paths with Orson Welles, one of the most brilliant and unpredictable minds Hollywood had ever seen. Their connection became one of the most whispered about friendships of old Hollywood, a friendship that many insiders believed turned into something deeper. Orson Welles had already shocked the world with his famous radio broadcast of The War of the Worlds, and was becoming a powerful new force in Hollywood. He was bold, creative, and fearless. He challenged every rule the studios tried to place on him. People admired him, but were also intimidated by him. Lucy, on the other hand, was beginning to understand her own strengths as an actress. She admired intelligence and courage in others, and Orson had both in overwhelming amounts. According to many people who worked at RKO, Lucy and Orson were often seen having long private lunches and deep conversations. They spoke about storytelling, comedy, timing, performance, acting technique, and even the future of entertainment. Norman Lloyd, an actor from the Mercury Theater, once said that Orson was fascinated by Lucy's mind. He said Orson believed Lucy understood the science of comedy in a way most performers never could. He admired her ability to mix physical humor with emotion. He admired her discipline. He admired her drive. These deep conversations were unusual for Hollywood at that time. Most actors kept their distance from Orson because he was seen as too intense. But Lucy was not afraid of him. In fact, she was intrigued by the way he pushed boundaries. People who observed them believed their connection was not only emotional, but also intellectual. They saw two sharp thinkers who recognized something rare in each other. This closeness created tension for Desi Arnaz. Desi was charming, energetic, and passionate, but he was also deeply insecure. Whenever Orson visited Lucille or called her, Desi became noticeably uneasy. A receptionist from Desilu later shared that Desi would demand to know how long Orson had been there and what they had talked about. He rarely acted jealous, but with Orson Welles, his jealousy surfaced immediately. To Desi, Orson represented everything he feared. He feared losing Lucy's admiration. He feared losing influence. He feared losing control. Orson himself never publicly commented on a possible romantic connection. In one interview years later, when the subject came up, he responded with a mysterious remark. He said some connections are too meaningful for gossip. Then he refused to speak further. This silence only added to the mystery and strengthened the belief that something important had happened between them. People who studied Lucy's career noticed a major shift during the time she spent around Orson. Before this period, Lucy accepted the roles she was given without protest. After her association with Orson, she began to question directors. She started suggesting new ideas. She fought for better scenes and better scripts. She studied camera angles. She learned how to control an audience. This transformation was not small. It became the foundation for her later success as both a performer and a studio owner. A script supervisor once said that after being around Orson, Lucy walked into rooms differently. She spoke with more confidence. She carried herself like a person who understood her value. It was as if Orson unlocked a part of her that had been sleeping, a part that believed she could shape her own destiny. While Orson awakened her ambition and confidence, the next man offered her something she was craving even more. During a painful chapter of her marriage, he offered quiet, steady escape at a time when her heart needed shelter. Robert Mitchum. During the early 1950s, Lucille Ball was becoming the most recognizable face on television. I Love Lucy was turning into a national sensation. Families gathered around their screens every week to watch her fall, stumble, and laugh her way through each episode. The public saw a happy wife and mother who lived a life filled with humor and love. But privately, Lucy was facing a much different reality. Her marriage to Desi Arnaz was becoming more painful with each passing year. His late nights, his affairs, and his unpredictable behavior left her feeling lonely and wounded.
Yes, well, now about Ricky. You know, there's another thing you overlooked, Peggy. I love him, too.
It was during this difficult period that Lucy crossed paths with Robert Mitchum, a man who was the complete opposite of Desi in almost every way. Robert Mitchum was one of Hollywood's most famous rebels. He was quiet, mysterious, and carried an air of danger wherever he went. He rarely smiled in public and rarely showed emotion, yet he had a magnetic presence that drew people toward him. Women found him irresistible, not because of charm or sweet words, but because he seemed so unbothered by Hollywood's rules. Lucy noticed this immediately. He did not seek attention. He did not try to impress anyone. He simply existed in a way that felt powerful and real. According to Desilu's staff members and production assistants who worked on various sets, Lucy and Mitchum met at industry parties and studio events. They seemed to understand each other without speaking much. Their conversations were short but meaningful. People said they noticed how Lucy would relax around Mitchum. She did not have to perform or pretend. She could simply breathe. One assistant once said that Mitchum gave Lucy a feeling of quiet that she did not have anywhere else in her life. Rumors of an affair between them began circulating among insiders during the height of Lucy's fame. Multiple workers from that era believed their connection became physical. What made the rumor believable was the timing. Lucy was deeply hurt by Desi's constant infidelity. She felt rejected by the man she loved. Mitchum, on the other hand, carried a calm energy that made people feel safe. His silence, his steady voice, and his lack of drama must have felt like a refuge for her. There was one story that many insiders repeated. A security guard at Desilu claimed he once saw Mitchum leaving Lucy's dressing room very late at night. He said he was paid a large sum of money by Desi himself and told to take a vacation and forget what he saw. The guard never mentioned the amount until many years later. He said he had no choice. He had a family to support and could not risk losing his job. This moment later became one of the most used pieces of evidence among Hollywood historians who studied Lucy's personal life. What makes this chapter even more interesting is the way Lucy's on-screen performance changed during this time. Television critics and performance scholars pointed out that around 1952, Lucy began carrying herself with a new sense of confidence and subtle sensuality. Her comedic timing grew sharper. Her presence felt stronger. Some believed this shift came from her personal life and the emotional intensity she may have experienced with Mitchum. Mitchum himself remained silent about the rumors. He never denied them. He never confirmed them. In interviews, whenever reporters mentioned Lucy's name, he gave a small half-smile and changed the subject. His niece later wrote in a memoir that Mitchum kept a signed photograph of Lucy in his private study. The picture was hidden in a drawer with his personal belongings. The message written by Lucy simply said that some storms are worth getting caught in. This small detail added more fuel to the belief that their connection was real. But the next surprising man in Lucy's story was someone no one expected. A rugged American legend who seemed to belong to a completely different world from hers, yet somehow found his way into her life. John Wayne. When people think of John Wayne and Lucille Ball, they imagine two stars from completely different worlds. John Wayne was the symbol of rugged American masculinity. He was the cowboy, the soldier, the fearless hero who stood tall on the big screen.
Well, Reverend, that tears it. No, and you stay out of this. All of you. I don't want you with me.
Lucille Ball, on the other hand, was the queen of television comedy. She amazed viewers with her physical humor, her silly expressions, and her warm and lively energy. They seemed so different that the idea of a private connection between them felt impossible. Yet according to several Hollywood insiders, there was a brief moment when their lives quietly crossed in a more intimate way. This connection happened during a period when both stars were facing emotional changes. John Wayne was between marriages and dealing with the pressure of maintaining his heroic image. Lucy was struggling with Desi Arnaz's emotional distance and constant affairs. Both stars were famous. Both had demanding careers, and both felt lonely in their private lives. When they met at industry events, charity functions, and film premieres, they found comfort in each other's company because they understood the pressure that fame placed on them. Hollywood gossip columnist Hedda Hopper left behind unpublished notes that mentioned a surprising closeness between Lucy and Wayne. Hopper was known for her sharp eye and strong connections in the industry. She wrote that the two stars shared a warm friendship that occasionally turned into something more personal. A driver who later shared his private journals claimed that he once drove both of them to a quiet location for a weekend that was meant to be private and temporary. He wrote that it was not dramatic, not passionate, and not filled with conflict. It was simply two people seeking peace and companionship in a world that rarely allowed them to rest. What made this connection believable was the steady respect Wayne always showed to Lucy throughout their careers. Wayne appeared on The Lucy Show in the year 1966, and witnesses on set noticed an easy comfort between them. They shared smiles that seemed to carry old memories. They touched each other's hands casually, as if the closeness had existed for a long time. A photographer who quietly watched them during a break said that Wayne whispered something in Lucy's ear that made her laugh in a natural and warm way. It was not the famous Lucy Ricardo laugh. It was Lucy's real laugh, relaxed and intimate. People who worked closely with Lucy said she liked steady and calm men during moments when Desi's behavior caused chaos in her personal life. Wayne was strong, loyal, and straightforward. He treated her with respect. He was not emotional or dramatic. He did not seek control. He gave her a kind of peaceful presence that she was craving. One of Lucy's hairstylists remembered Lucy once saying that after years of being surrounded by loud and unpredictable energy, she sometimes longed for someone who stood strong and kept life simple. Wayne fit that description. Wayne's son Patrick once said in an interview that his father respected Lucy as a businesswoman. He even told his children that Lucy had more strength and courage than many of the executives he worked with. He believed Lucy had a solid mind for business and leadership. This admiration suggests that their friendship came with mutual understanding and admiration rather than shallow attraction. Whether their connection was romantic or simply emotional, it left a gentle impact on both stars. They continued to support each other professionally. They continued to speak kindly about each other. Their bond remained quiet but meaningful. Hollywood never confirmed the rumor, but those who were close to them believed there was more to the story than anyone admitted publicly. But Lucy's next private connection was not gentle or comforting. It was driven by anger, betrayal, and a desire to reclaim the power she had lost inside her own marriage. The CBS executive. Among all the whispered stories about Lucille Ball's private life, the most controversial and complicated one involves a man who is never publicly named. He was a powerful CBS executive, someone trusted by the network and very close to Desi Arnaz. According to several Desilu staff members who came forward many years later, this alleged affair was not born from passion or admiration. It was born from pain, exhaustion, and the need to reclaim a sense of power in a marriage where Lucy often felt betrayed and humiliated. Desi's infidelity was no secret to those who worked at Desilu. He had a long history of affairs, some casual and some emotional. Lucy knew about many of them, and the hurt built up over the years. She tried to keep the marriage alive for the sake of her children and for the success of the show, but the emotional damage ran deep. People close to her said that she reached a point where she felt powerless. She loved Desi, yet she could no longer ignore the disrespect she endured. It was during this painful phase that, according to insiders, she made a decision that shocked even her closest friends. A secretary from the executive offices at Desilu later shared that several employees knew about Lucy's private meetings with the CBS executive. She explained that these meetings felt different from her usual business discussions. The atmosphere was tense, emotional, and charged with an energy that suggested something personal. Many believed that this alleged affair was Lucy's way of balancing the scales. After years of being hurt, she decided to show Desi that she could walk away from the marriage emotionally whenever she wanted. It was not about romance. It was about reclaiming dignity. One of the most revealing stories came from a studio accountant who worked closely with Desi. He said that Desi eventually discovered the truth, or at least strongly suspected it. The accountant described one intense argument where Desi accused Lucy of seeing someone else. Instead of crying or denying anything, Lucy calmly mentioned the executive's name. The moment she said it, Desi went silent and turned pale. According to the accountant, Desi never brought up the subject again. It was as if Lucy had finally found the one thing that could silence him, something that forced him to understand the pain he had caused her for so long. This alleged connection also seemed to change the professional atmosphere around Lucy. Writers, producers, and secretaries noticed that CBS suddenly began giving Lucy everything she asked for. Budgets were approved, creative requests were accepted, schedules were arranged according to her needs. These changes confused many people at the time because the show's ratings had not drastically changed. Yet Lucy had gained new influence, and many believed it came from her new closeness to someone in the higher ranks of the network. Lucy's personal assistant, whose unpublished memoir was shared only within her family, wrote that Lucy once admitted that the affair was not about falling in love. She explained that it was about speaking a language that Desi understood. She said that for years Desi behaved as if he was free to live however he wanted, while she was expected to remain faithful and silent. She felt trapped in a marriage where her pain was ignored. The assistant wrote that Lucy used the affair as a message. It was a way to remind Desi that she had power too. But Lucy's story did not end with pain or revenge. Her final rumored connection brought something entirely different, something gentle and human. It came from a man who understood fame as deeply as she did, and carried scars that matched her own. Dean Martin. As Lucille Ball entered the later years of her life, she had already lived through intense love, heartbreak, betrayal, and moments of deep emotional struggle. Her marriage to Desi Arnaz had ended, and although she found stability with her second husband, Gary Morton, her heart still carried scars from the past. During this time of quiet reinvention, another man slowly became an important presence in her life. That man was Dean Martin. Their connection was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, warm, and built on understanding that only two long-suffering Hollywood icons could share. Dean Martin was known as the smooth and charming entertainer with a glass of whiskey in his hand and a soft smile on his face. Behind this easy image was a man who had lived a difficult life. He had gone through divorce, career changes, heartbreak, and the pressure of being half of the famous duo, Martin and Lewis. His split with Jerry Lewis had shaken him deeply. Dean knew what it felt like to lose a partner, to rebuild a career, and to live with emotional wounds that never fully healed. Lucy recognized this pain because she carried similar wounds. According to people who lived near Lucy in Beverly Hills during the late 1960s and early 1970s, Dean's car was seen visiting her home late at night on several occasions. These visits were quiet and discreet. The neighbors who spoke about it later described the visits as gentle rather than secretive. They believed the two spent time talking, laughing, and giving each other the kind of comfort that only happens when someone truly understands your world. What makes their connection believable is the chemistry they openly showed whenever they appeared together on television. Their smiles seemed natural. Their eyes softened when they looked at each other. Their jokes flowed easily as if they shared a private language. Many viewers noticed that Lucy seemed more relaxed around Dean than she did around most men in the industry. She glowed in a different way. It was not the excited glow of a new romance. It was the warm glow of trust. Lucy's longtime hairdresser shared that Lucy lit up differently when Dean entered a room. She said Lucy became calm and peaceful, not silly or frantic like she often was during stressful moments. Dean had a gentle way of listening to people. He listened without interrupting, without judging, and without trying to fix everything. He simply understood. For someone like Lucy, who spent much of her life performing and pleasing others, being around someone who expected nothing from her must have felt like a relief. Dean Martin's daughter, Dina Martin, wrote that her father had a special phone line that only a small number of people could reach. She said Lucy was one of the few people who had that number. Sometimes Dean would step away from everyone to take Lucy's calls in private. He normally had no secrets from his children, but this one connection was kept quietly between him and Lucy. Dina believed that whatever they shared was deeply personal to both of them. Some people wondered how Gary Morton, Lucy's second husband, felt about her closeness to Dean. Those who lived and worked in Lucy's home said that Gary and Dean actually got along quite well. Their relationship was friendly and respectful. Gary understood that Lucy had lived a complicated life before she met him. He knew she needed emotional connections that helped her heal. Gary once told a staff member that Lucy deserved all the happiness she could find, especially after everything she had survived. Lucy and Dean's connection lasted for many years. It brought comfort to both of them during a time when their careers had slowed and life had become quieter. They did not need to hide from each other. They did not need to pretend. They simply enjoyed the rare peace that comes from spending time with someone who has walked the same difficult path. Let us know in the comments what you think about these hidden chapters of Lucille Ball's life.